All right, hi. I'm Zero Worldcraft. My cameraman's
Patrick.
and this is my arcade coffee table. So it's a RasPie4 1 terabyte system, which is actually hiding right about here, inside here. If you look at the side here, it's actually 2.5 inches thick, and a RasPie4 plus a CooliePie, which keeps me from having any fans of any kind in this system, which is pretty impressive because there's 15,000 games inside here. So it's only 2.5 inches thick, because what I used was not 2x4s but 3x4s to make this, and so that's exactly the thickness of a 3x4 is 2.5 inches, which is exactly what I needed for this CooliePie in here. And it's exactly the thickness of my trackball here, plus the screws on the bottom, and a LED unit, plus a protective ring to make sure that the LED unit doesn't get bashed whenever anybody hits this. So there's actually not a harness inside this, trackball harness, or a trackball ring, which actually I designed it originally to have this trackball ring, which is a much tighter fit to the trackball. But it turned out that as long as I kept it sandwiched properly, didn't need that. So this whole entire operation here cost me about $2,300, and it's actually because I went with the best possible things I could every turn. The control board for this is actually a Ultimark control board, and it's sitting right underneath this little mini TV here. We have a spinner. We have a whammy button. We've got triangle buttons from AliExpress in China. These ones, this is our start and our coin button, and you can see they have special designs. One up mushroom, and then this one's a get a better look at that, will you? This one's a Yoshi
With his tongue out.
yeah, player one start. And then if you go over to the 2-player side of it, it's Gex from 3DO and Super Nintendo. Anyway, and then the board design in a whole here, meaning the graphic, the image. So if you could kind of try to get the image here, buddy. It's actually Mario World 1, 2. So the first level, when you go under and things get like really weird and you're like, oh, Mario's like a good game. And then this is a 3D representation of that level. And then the design along the border in the front here is actually the entire level map. And I believe the table on the front is something like, it's something like here to here. So this section from here, my other fingers, from here, back out, will you? From there to there is this entire table, just in 3D. And then, while we're at it, maybe take a look at the side here. Yeah, so this is a paddle button. This is a tilt button. Paddle meaning like
For pinball.
Pinball, right. And this is an E from Mega Man. And then there's a little bit of smoke I had coming out of the E tank. And Proto Man, the Ninja Turtles, Legend of Zelda, the Triforce. Then some Street Fighter 2 guys. Samus from Metroid, and there's her ball. I think that's Amy Rose from Sonic. That's Cool Spot from 7-Up games. It's kind of better on the other side, but Scrooge McDuck. And then you can't see it, but there's Knuckles. And then there's a Lara Croft. And then underneath here, there's a Dragon Warrior 1 armor, the Armor of Erdrick. But anyway, those are my guys on the side. And the other side has, the, right paddle?
Yeah.
Player 2 side. So on the 52-inch table here, it's meant for just to be just long enough for you to, hit your
pinball paddles.
Right, exactly. And why it's 52 inches is because most arcade machines, it's all crammed in, and it's meant actually. It's the control panels are designed from like this little button map that everybody gets, and it's only a couple inches off because like that's bare minimum, and everybody's crammed together.
And it's more meant for the arcade to cram space.
Right, but if you're a human being made out of human being parts and limbs and whatnot, pretend you have functional joints. And what you end up with is 52 inches. If you've got two people sitting side by side, trying not really to bump elbows too much. And then in the middle, you have, the trackball. And the spinner here is made for games like Arkanoid and stuff like that. These are what are they called? The guns. And,
EMS Top Gun 3.
Yeah, and they do that by themselves. Still working on a emulator that just has the gun games by themselves. Haven't set that up yet. This is the box for it. But the Ultimark website, they'll sell you some solenoid guns that aren't wireless. We went with these because these are wireless. That's actually what these little guys are here. Because they're wireless, they're meant to reflect back from the light at the bottom of the gun, and so they'll actually work that way. They use up a lot of USB ports. Each gun has its own thumb drive, like this. So I had to install a double USB port input at the bottom here. All right, so that's the double USB input. There's another single USB here. There's an HDMI and a USB here, so we've got 4 USBs at the bottom of this, which means that I can hook up 4 regular controllers, and they're already pre-programmed in. They look like this. They're these Afterglow PS3 PC controllers, and they light up bright blue. Let's see. There we go. And when it's connected, it'll say first player, second player. How does it light up? Well, maybe I have to have it connected to light up. But anyway, I'll turn it on. And I'm going to try to tell you some of the things that are a problem when making something like this. So you can go on to Daniel Spy's website on YouTube, and he makes really good, really big machines. And you'll notice he uses really, really thick wood. And then lately, I've noticed he's had to use a CNC machine to actually thin out sections of his wood in order to fit his parts. Now, he often goes with the Ultimark buttons, and each one of them is multicolor Roy G. Biv, which my white L buttons are. So is the trackball. So are both of these joysticks, and so are the paddle buttons on the side. Those are all 5, what is it, 5, God, it's been a while, 5 volts, and these ones are 12 volt. So these like Chinese AliExpress buttons, the triangle ones, those are 12 volt. The rest of them are 5 volt. The 5 volt buttons run into the Ultimark computer, or the Ultimark control board underneath this little TV here. And that's where they get their power from. Same place the power comes to and from all the buttons. But the rest of these guys have to get their light from a 12 volt power source, which means I have to have a switching power supply under here. And then, so I guess this whole thing is actually a box of 3x4 on its side. And then there's 2 support beams here. There's 2 more support beams here and here. So, well, I guess those are the same one. No, and 2 more here, 1 here, and 1 here, and then 2 more running under here, and then I put in a block of wood, block of wood, block of wood, block of wood, and that gave me enough room to drill a hole through those blocks of wood, and now I just attach my table legs. These ones are IKEA table legs. I actually plan on making another set with double the length. So what you do is there's a certain amount of the bottom of these IKEA legs where it's just a block of wood, and a block of wood, the entire center of it's hollow. This table's actually pretty heavy. I'm not quite sure how much it weighs. It weighs as much as, I don't know, I want to say it's like 70 pounds. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But anyway, I started getting into the Daniel Spies thing because of you'll find certain limitations. You'll get limited by your abilities, and you'll get limited by, first of all, you have to make it at least 2.5 inches because that's how thick this trackball needs. This is a Suzo Hap trackball, by the way. It's a, I think it's a 3-inch trackball. This is actually a hi-hat trackball. So the standard trackball, you have to go on to SuzoHap.com. You have to order another top of your Suzo Hap trackball. It's like 15 bucks. Get rid of this one, put everything back together. Also, you have to take it apart to put the bolt through to get the bolt connected to the LEDs on the underside. There's a little hole on the underside of this trackball. That's where the ring of LEDs, get it from Ultimark. Yeah, those LEDs will go to the Ultimark board in the middle here. I actually maxed out that board. The last pin on that board, you can't use it. You actually have one less pins than you would think. When you put in the spinner here, which is games for like Arkanoid and Breakout, really old 70s games, and like, you spin it like this and this little bar slides, like Pong. Pong does stuff like that too. But because this is an analog sort of a control, it uses up an extra pin. And if you tell the Ultimark that the Ultimate I/O that this guy is in here, all of a sudden you'll lose 2 extra pins. Same with the trackball. The trackball is analog up, down, right, left, which means you'll lose another up, down, right, left. So if you put in these things, just know that you're going to lose an additional 6 pins off your $100 Ultimark I/O. This graphic came from GameOnGraphics.com, and I just blew up this to exactly the size I wanted it, cut it out, and I added the borders to it. The same border that's on the front is on the back, by the way. Let's see, what else can I tell you? Oh yeah, once again about the thickness. All right, so the buttons, they have 3/8 of an inch in give before. That's all the room you get. 3/8 of an inch. You take off the little screwy cap, you spin it around because it gives you just like this fraction of an inch more of room. Then you have 3 inches or 3/8 of an inch, which is your thickness. That's your maximum thickness. Any thicker than that, you can't have it. So, in order to have this nice design that's forever nice, we wanted to put a plexiglass plate over it. Now, a lot of times you'll get guys that'll order their plexiglass from China. It'll be laser cut. Now that's really nice and all, but it's going to cost you like $100 to ship it back. And what's the other problem with that? Oh yeah, it's a different type of plexiglass. It's actually slightly more brittle. So this is like poured plexiglass or whatever, the kind you buy at Home Depot. It's much, much cheaper. I think this plate cost me $60 altogether. And it's 2 foot wide by, I don't know, however long it was. I want to say like 60 something inches. And well, because this is a 52-inch table, and the extra room, no, I had to get 2 of them. So anyway, so I had to cut the sides out of the second plate, and then the first plate, I think it's just one cut, chopping it off on the side. You're definitely going to want like a hand table to do that. I should mention that the reason why these buttons are set up the way they are is because you actually have to match a modern controller, and that's what this whole that's what this is all about, is actually matching the number of buttons on this modern controller. So these two are analog, and this are actually exactly the same usually, and usually so is this and these 4 buttons, except you have an what is that from your point of view, R3 and L3. Okay, so let's do this many buttons exactly. All right, you're gonna need, well, here's this one. You're gonna need a second flight stick controller, because maybe I want to play like Top Gun, and I don't want to use all this for Top Gun. I want to use this for Top Gun. So I go into my menu, and I enable, you know, these controls for up, down, right, left, and my R3 and my L3 I'll set as A and B for that particular game in Nintendo. Save it in the save configs, and there we go. Now, those are the proper controls for that. It's more fun that way. When I start up something like Arkanoid, the spinner's already enabled, and it actually will even knock out your joystick. Let's see, what else can I say here real quick about the insides. Oh yeah, so if these are 3/8 of an inch is all you get, the plate here is 1/8 of an inch. That was like basically just thick enough to give it some sort of strength here. And then underneath that is a 2/8 or rather 1/4 inch MDF board that's been laminated black on the top and bottom. And that actually has kept all kinds of dust out of this. Vacuumed it numerous times, and so it's nice and clean on the inside. It's nice and crispy on the outside. It's got nice clean edges. We've got our guns in the holsters. We've actually got cup holders here in the back. They're big gulp cup holders. Right here. We've got our, what is it? R for trigger, so R3, like R is your right finger on a mouse. So that becomes R3, L3, R3, L3. You've got your 4 buttons here. You've got your 4 buttons here. You got your L1 and R1, L1, R1, and L2 and R2. So normally you could stack these off to the side here, but we once again try to use natural feel, and I'll spin my hand around this way, and see that exactly more or less matches, just like a lazy hand sitting there. And then, you know, this button is actually, R2 is set as a turbo for most systems, because you don't need R2 for most of the older systems. And this is all set up for retro. So things are here from the bottom up, you know. Some of the older games need this. That's why it's there. PlayStation uses L1 or L2 and R2. So for PlayStation, I had to knock this out. No turbo for that, because that's used in PlayStation. I have hatches underneath, so I can get at my well, I'll show you here. I've got a hatch here, so I can get at my Raspberry Pi. I just unhook a few of these guys, and the Raspberry Pi jumps right out. If I want to get at the Ultimark for whatever reason, say a wire gets loose or something like that, I can get at it through this. And over here, see, can you see it? Look at the screen. There. Boy, that's fuzzy. All I'm seeing is your hand. It's reversed. No. Well, I did that. Yeah, so this right here is a nuclear switch, and I'm going to just turn it on. So, anyway, you get a lot of good light bleed on the edges here. Has this nice rainbow effect. Now I haven't set up the LED buttons, but this is just the regular startup program. I actually have to get into the Linux behind Raspberry Pi and RetroPie in order to change it. And I stole my intro screens from Virtual Man because he has good intro screens. Turn that down a little bit. Down here, you can see I've got an intro screen actually on the Pi itself, or on the table itself. Loads up, does this nice little Transformers thing. And then this thing is actually meant to display the marquees most of the time. Goes black, TV, finishes off its intros. Could you back off a little bit, Ted, so we can see the table? And I'll just hit it to the side to lock in the LEDs in this configuration. They're all white. They were cycling through blue, red, green, but I just locked them in as white. I have music obviously in the background, but if I start a game, that shuts off. The table itself, it'd be nice if it actually, the way I set up this little screen, it'd be nice if it just showed, what is it, ZX Spectrum, showed the image there. But if I go down into my games list, it'll start showing the marquees for those. I don't like the ZX Spectrum. Oh, here, put it over on the table. It doesn't really matter. But anyway, these are the games that it has. 3DO. Let's see, I might as well do it slowly. 53 games for the 3DO. That's mostly the European and the US collection combined. Amiga CD32, that's 128 games. I might get rid of this. It depends on how much, joystick and buttons work for it. This is a surplus category of arcade games. I actually have to see if I even need these. Atari 2600, 834 games. You don't need the Atari 5200, Atari 7800, 77 games. The Atari Jaguar. Now these work kind of sketch. They do work on the Raspberry Pi 4, on the Raspberry Pi 3, no dice. This is the Linux. It's like the portable Atari handheld. And I think there was something that came out for this recently, but it's in there. Atomic Wave. This is like Dreamcast, but for arcade machines. Commodore 64. I'm probably gonna get rid of this. I actually have 15,000 games for this. And at the moment I've just got 83 because it was just like this small scroll to, see if I can get it working with just the table itself. I don't want to rely on keyboards for anything, so that's probably my number one gonna disappear system. Capcom 77 systems. This is not This is Capcom 1, 2, and 3. CPS 1, 2, and 3 all stuck together. ColecoVision. This one I have in here, but there's so many buttons on this. I haven't set up the table itself to have an exit button for it, but if you just hit that button, this is my hotkey on my controller. There is no actual hotkeys on the table itself because I didn't want extra confusion. And I'm going to talk about that now, actually. The hotkeys I do have are pre-configured load, state, save state, and exit. And this can be set to any macro. The problem with the Ultimark is that it's also a blessing and a problem. But if you, I have this set to like comma and then period and then something else along with hotkey. So it's my hotkey plus like comma, hotkey plus period, hotkey plus like X or something like that. And what that does is when the Ultimark wants to, those are the macros in the Ultimark, and the Ultimark just hits both buttons at the same time. So I once had the Konami code put into this whammy button. It doesn't work that way. It's just going to smash them all at the same time, and that does nothing. And speaking of which, when you set up your controls, you could set them up X arcade style. You could set them up, whatever your control board is natural kind of style. That's probably a bad idea. Unless you're using the Ultimark and you want to use the extension pins to control the Xbox 360, the Xbox, and the PS2 and the PS3. Now you can use those extension pins, but that's going to cost you. Kind of vital pins that you might need for other things. It's got 96 LED pins, tons of LED pins. Each one of these guys, each one of these multi LEDs uses up 4. When you wire in your normal LEDs, you actually have to switch your positive and negative. It's weird that way. Your ground all of a sudden is your line is your ground, like your red and your red and your black. So if you're having trouble with regular LEDs, that's why. The multicolor LEDs, there's a switch when you go from the multicolor ones have black for the ground and then red, green, blue, and then you'll notice you'll try to wire in your single color LEDs like these guys here, you have to switch the red and the black. That's how you get that to work. Let's see, what else was I going to say? In order to run the 12 volt and the 5 volts, you need a switching power supply in order to not get feedback, because you have all kinds of complicated systems here. There's actually a power strip here, and I actually took a regular cord, wired it through all this, split it at the end, spliced it into that nuclear button I have. Then I ran it to a line filter. The power cord coming into this is 15 amps, so I used a 15 amp line filter. We're in America, 125, so 15 amp, 125 line filter. But yeah, right before you wire in the line filter, you have to put in a like a 5 volt slow fuse. Don't put a quick fuse like you find at an auto parts store. You got to go. Basically, it's $1 per amp. So put in a 5 or 6 amp fuse, slow burning fuse. Then run it, so power, like from the wall, your fuse, your line filter. Now my line filter probably only needed to be 5 or 6 amps. I have a 5 one, so I'll just say 5. Your line filter probably only needed to be 5 amps to match the fuse, but I put in a 15 because that's what the whole system had, and it's overkill, but it was perfect overkill. And then after that, you run it to your switching power supply. Your switching power supply will have a ground, and then 2 lines in. Just put the red in the whichever way you want. It doesn't matter with those 2. And then from there, the power comes out of a 5, goes to my Ultimark control board. I think it's minus 5 amps. Yeah, and then the minus 12, minus 5 volts. Yeah. And then the 5 amps or 5 volts. Anyway, the 5 goes to all these buttons down here, and then the 12 can run all the more hardcore buttons up here. Let's see, I got lost for a little bit there. Yeah, so if you want to use Japanese tournament style buttons, these are Sumitsu buttons. 3/8 of an inch is all you got. I would recommend 1/8 of an inch plexi, 1/4 of an inch board underneath. Game on graphics, you know, make your own design, and then I got this so precisely cut that we just wrapped the design around the edge. And there's videos on YouTube that show you how to lay it out well. It was pretty difficult process, but essentially we what did we do? We peeled it back, we got it perfectly laid at the end, and then we just kept peeling the stuff off and then rolled it around the edge, cut it, you know, just got it perfect. There's no design underneath, because why do I need one? But there's no wires or parts hanging out underneath either. This does not have a hatch for you to lift it up, because, you know, it's pretty much perfect. It's solid. Let's see. Oh yeah, you can bring this up higher, which might have been nice. And the way to do that is you actually have to cut off the bottom of both of your IKEA legs. You have to take a 2x2 and shove that into the top leg, shove the bottom leg into it, and you know, just make sure that the board in between is long enough so your 2 shortened legs, because you got to kind of cut the top off one and the bottom off the other. You know, that's how I'll be bringing this up a little bit higher. And I'll have the option of just untwisting the bottom legs, putting on the longer legs. Whew. Let's see, what else do I got going on here? I got Daphne. This is a Laserdisc system. Dreamcast. Now the Dreamcast is PlayStation 2 level, and this setup is currently the 32-bit Raspberry Pi 4 setup, which is what we have available right now, but they're working on a 64-bit setup. And if you go on to arcadepunks.com, you can actually grab a 64-bit setup, which I'm probably going to do. Might make this a little bit more playable. Now my RasPie is not the 2 or the 4 gigabyte RAM, but the 8 gigabyte RAM. The 8 gigabyte RAM, it's possible that the 32-bit model of the RetroPie RasPie build is not taking full advantage of all 8 gigabytes of my RAM. The system is, the RasPie 3 never had any audio-visual problems. I could yank this HDMI and plug it into this old school TV, which they have ports for. No problem. The RasPie 4 it's just whiny. And it doesn't like it. So what I ended up doing is I put this second TV in here because it has dual HDMI ports, and I didn't want it to be like, oh well, which HDMI port do I use, and then not actually show up when I hit start. So this way it knows it's grounded to this for port number 2. This is port number 1, and actually in order to achieve everything I had going on here, I needed like 2 or 3 more USB ports. So hiding in here is actually a one USB port with multiple USB port intakes. And it actually had 7 of them on there, but I found out that only like 4 of them would work at a time. So at the moment I believe it's 4 USB ports all running into here. And let's see, what are those for? Those 4 are actually the 2 down here. And I actually ran out of pins on the Ultimark board. So my solution is that this trackball, rather than eating up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pins on my my control board, what I did was I got a Suzo Hap Molex connector to what was it? I think it's like a 7-pin setup for the Ultimark. So it's a Suzo Hap to Ultimark connector, and then I took that apart and I connected it to a USB. So that's one of the USBs in there. And if you start up like a golf game or something like that does use it, it just automatically starts right up. So that gave me just enough pins to do all of this. And of course, when you set up these controls, it's a keyboard. Any computer reads this as a keyboard. Did I hit mute or something like that? There we go. So actually, all keyboards are in fact a pinball machine with way more buttons set up. And I got lost when I was speaking earlier about the setting your board up in the style of Arcade X, which is what Daniel Spies did. What I actually did is I made it easy on myself on Mame, and I just set up everything I could Mame style. And then I made a decision where I didn't want to be pressing in the background. I didn't want any of these buttons to be hotkeys in and of themselves. So there's no button combos here. You can mash any buttons all at once, and it's not going to do a second thing. You actually have to grab the keyboard, find weird buttons, and H for hotkey. There's no way to actually get in trouble on this board, which almost everybody has their board set up for it. The Megacade. The Megacade, if you start just mashing stuff on the Megacade, or even playing a game that requires you to hit like let's say Punch Out, it requires you to hit Start and a punch button, on the Megacade that will automatically send you into the menu and start doing weird things. None of that. V-Man had a lot of music on here. I took a bunch of his music, maybe about 50% of it sucked, so I replaced it with better stuff. I'm just going to use this controller. I could be hitting the buttons here. At the moment, by the way, my whammy button is set up for X, the top 3. It's set up for these. So if you're playing Street Fighter and you want to do all 3 punches at the same time, at least at the moment, it's all 3 punches. Konami code doesn't work that way because the Konami code requires you to punch in 1 control at a time. But as far as my exit, save, and load, those worked out perfectly. Because it's just hotkey plus one of the keyboard functions. So speaking of those multiple buttons, no control, no shift, no alt. So none of these have control, shift, or alt. Now, for your player 1, sometimes you get into the RetroPie menu, you need at least 1 button that's like enter or something like that. Turns out it can just be space, so my X button is space. So when I'm in the background of menus and stuff, I can just use this X button, and it's, because with shift, it's shift plus another button does something. None of that. Famicom, this is the Japanese Nintendo. Final Burn Alpha, this is minus all the Capcom games that you saw earlier, 1302. This is very fast moving. It's very similar to Mame, but its emulator is more like the Famicom or the SNES emulator. The Mame emulator's got its own internal menu on top of the regular, like let's say Game & Watch menu. These are the old. Here they are, the old little handheld guys. I think I got them all on most of these systems. I went all the way down the list of Wikipedia, made sure I got them all. Japanese, European piles put together, took out any European games that had the same name as American, because American games actually have a slightly faster frames per second, which is like 30. The Europeans have like 24. We're NTSC, that's our 30 frames per second. Their PAL, what is it, 24, 25 frames a second. And I think there's a couple PAL games in here. And then in any of my systems, I also, most of the time, dumped in all the Japanese stuff. But then I went through and I, was like, is there too much Japanese? Is it all Japanese? Do I have it in American? Or at the worst, European? Japanese uses NTSC as well. Game Gear 318 and this mode button, they want you to put the mode button everywhere. The mode button actually, I think, just switches your A and B, so you don't need to do that a ton of times. Game Boy, this has more games than the Game Boy Color. And once again, these I went down the list and I made sure on Wikipedia that I had every single game, even sometimes including demos, public domain games. And the Game Boy Advance here has a videos section, but it also says video dash whatever. 595 Game Boy Color games. In television, I haven't set this up, but it's going to be exactly the way the Coleco works. Arcade Classics, I swapped in this myself. 890 games, but once again, that's minus the Final Burn Alpha games. Which you want to run on the faster emulator if available, minus Capcom, minus Neo-Geo. All those are in their own pile, not doubled somewhere else. And then once again, minus the Mame 2010 games. Now the Mame 2010 games, you actually need a 64-bit system, and once again, this is 32-bit. So my Mame 2010 games don't work. And so that's why I'm doing this video, because I'm probably going to wipe this whole system. And this was a lot of work. This was like 4 years of work. Master System, this is the old pre-cool Sega, before the Sega Genesis. There's the Sega Genesis. Sometimes some games can work off of 6 buttons. It's kind of hard to get it configured properly with the 4-button controller and 2 L1s. The one thing you kind of want to remember is that you don't really want to have to use this and this all the time. You really want them to... So there's no way to get it all perfectly right. You probably will have to get into each games type and kind of give it a quick look, but 951 games, man, that's a lot. I think the regular library is 700 something, so there's, or maybe 800 something, so there's like 100 hacks in here. MSX2. This is a new one for me. I don't know if this is all the number of games, but it does have a controller there, so I'll probably end up keeping it. Oh, this is like the Japanese Nintendo before the Nintendo. It's a very strange system. Nintendo 64. If you play 17 of these games, I put in HD textures. So if you play like Mario 64, you'll get like the Molly-Mutt texture. You can look at my previous video, I went through this. This, once again, is a Sega Dreamcast arcade system. I'm not really confident that 32 gigabyte, even with the RasPie4 with the 8 gigabyte RAM, I'm not confident that all of these can be run really great. Because this is like PlayStation 2 level, and it seems like the Raspberry Pi 4 32-bit, really, which is what's available right now, really maxes out at like the PlayStation level. But that's all the PlayStation. Oh yeah, PlayStation 4 here. Let me go to this real quick. And as you can see down here on my table, as soon as I go to a game, it shows the marquee. Now it's a very new system, so it kind of tends to be like, oh, I haven't sized this before.
But the way to fix, if I continue to have problems with this not being as fast as changing games on the TV, I actually plan on go through all the marquees that just go to here in the Pi Marquee 2 folder and resizing them for this. Now Daniel Spies, a lot of times he's using the 14 inch marquee display. This is the 10 inch because if I used 14 it would have bled over into this section over here, and actually internally I've left this area open and this area open, not right here, not right here, but this area here open and this area here open to have a series of turbo switches on off auto and a bunch of turbo slides. You know, that'll increase or decrease my turbo frequency rate. That's a bit of a fix, and it includes getting turbo chips that have like at least 21 pins for each side. 22 pins, 23 with the ground, so 23 pins on each side. It's a bit of work. So I just wanted to get this table at least up and running where it was at, and as you see, I get some nice light bleed around the corners from all the buttons. That's pretty cool. Eventually I'm going to set up the LED system here, so every time you press on it you get like a different LED color. This one, every time you press it it'll go to white, and every time you let it go it'll change, or no, it'll be white, but every time you press it it'll hit a different rainbow color. And then I think I'm going to make it so that when you're standing back and it's just sitting on idle or something like that, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 RGBs there, and that's 7 colors of the rainbow. So it should start on, what is it, red, and then, you know, red, and then the next one would be, you know, orange, and then red, orange, yellow, you know, and just have it constantly moving that way. That'd be kind of nice. What was I going to do here? Oh yeah, I was going to go to Mario 64 real quick. Normally I lock things like that out in the kids menu. Keep problems like that from happening. But Mario 64. Oh, it's Super Mario 64, is it not?
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, there it is. I did want to point out that I have Super Mario 64 Odyssey. So this is the Cappy version, where from the Switch, where you take your hat and you throw it on something. I do have that. That's pretty interesting. I have some hacks like that. And if I was to play this one, it would be a Molly-Mutt structure. If I were to start it up, you would see the video game cover. For every one of my systems for every one of the systems, you hit start, you get the video game cover. That's kind of like a special little thing that only my systems have. Also, for all my systems, you'll even if it's a hack, see, developer, you know, that's a hack. That's who, you know, figured out the hack. I try to put something about the hack. I'm trying to make sure that all of my games have their information. Sometimes they don't have the video. Almost all of them do. What's that? Screenshot and marquee, and then of course the marquee again shows up down here, which it shows up like that when I play. If I don't have a marquee, it'll just show Nintendo 64. It'll do that like weird little N64 graphic. Background music of Hackers. And while I'm at it, in PlayStation, I have the original version of Wipeout, the Hackers version, where Johnny Lee Miller is playing in the club, and Angelina Jolie's giving him like the evil eye. Yeah, that's actually in here. Nintendo DS. This one, I can press a button and it'll be 2 screens side by side. The bottom, the top. You know, I just keep hitting my R3. I already have that set up. The L3, that's your little pen thing. Neo-Geo. I have this list perfected. I have all the bootlegs, every single game. Worked really hard on it. And once again, these aren't in Mame. They're not in some other system. Nintendo, I have an endless amount of Metroid hacks in here. I have an endless amount of Mega Man hacks. I have an endless amount of Mario hacks. Yeah. The official list is like 700 something. But that's how many. So what? I've got almost like 1,000 hacks in there. That's pretty nuts. Neo-Geo Pocket, 8 games. That one's just the black and white version of the Neo Pocket Color, 43 games. This is just for me. This is like, I have like Sierra Rain. Here, I'll show you. Yeah, I have like DuckTales and, yeah, Sierra Rain and stuff like that. The Secret of the Rainforest. That's just for me. That's the, I'm going to keep that one. Turbo Graphics, like if I was to sell it, this, I wouldn't put that in it. Turbo Graphics 16, once again, all the Japanese games mashed into there as well, but then once again, I played them for a few minutes, made sure I pulled out anything that was just too Japanese, an English speaker could not play, was not fun. There's actually a threshold of fun, and the Turbo Graphics 16 was a lot of work, because I didn't know much about it. It's called the PCE as well. So yeah, so English game, and there was a bajillion different names. I got it all figured out. TurboGrafx 16, 170 games. This one, I only have one game in the moment, but that's just because I haven't run the file to what's called unpack all the packed files, which is an annoying thing I have to do next. PSP, this is just a random collection because PSP games, they're just step down versions of like PlayStation games or PlayStation 2 games. So this is just because I have a 1 terabyte system here. I actually had room to leave like an incomplete library, and the PSP is endless. It's not an actual system. Neither is the PSP Minis. 200 games. They're like phone games. PlayStation. This was my top. This was everybody's top 500 lists smashed together, along with our favorites. And we were at the time we were limited to a 512 gigabyte system. So it ended up being just enough space to have the top 500 discs. So once you smash down disc 1, disc 2, disc 3, disc 4, on my portable system, which is right here, if you can believe it, this little guy right here is exactly all of this. It just, if I was to yank out the controller port here and stick it into here, and the controller's just, it's a little dongle. I could start this little guy up, and you would see exactly the same thing, except for, I think there wasn't enough room for all these PlayStation, PSP games. I think we just had 10 at the time. But yeah, everybody's top 500 list. I've got 200 gigabytes to spare on this thing. I don't know, maybe I'll turn it into our top 1,000 list. There's like 1,700 games for the PlayStation, something like that. That's one of the few that's like an incomplete library, just because it's endless. And I didn't want to stick in a multiple terabyte off to the side drive. This is all running off of a 1 terabyte tiny little micro SD card. The least amount of damageable parts. If I had a second drive coming off of the RasPie that had more terabytes or whatever, it would actually be, if something got jiggled here on the table or something, it's like a damageable part. Whereas the solid state micro SD card, it's not damageable. And you can get them so they're shockproof and stuff. If I sold this, this menu wouldn't be here. I would just get rid of that. You wouldn't even see it. It would go right from PlayStation to Saturn. Saturn, I'm probably going to take my 200 gigabytes and just cap off all the rest of the Saturn games. Saturn's really great system, fast-moving Sega. ScumVM, this is the other keyboard thing that I have for myself. Probably would get rid of this if I sold it. Sega 32X, this actually has 41 games, I said in my other video, but what is it? Scottie Pippen's is a 4-disc game that cannot be combined in this type of system, so you just got to get rid of it. And then Johnny Mnemonic doesn't work. Yeah, same with Sega CD. Any games that were for the Sega CD that were also for the Sega 32X are just in Sega 32X. That's the emulator that runs them anyway. You don't want them in Sega CD. Kind of a thing that V-Man didn't really have figured out. And so this is actually the number of Sega CD games that you'll have, unless you have a bunch of Japanese ones that, like, you can't even play for an English speaker. This is the Japanese version of the Super Nintendo. This was just V-Man's pile. I dropped it in here. my Super Nintendo pile actually has a bunch of these games in it, all the European ones, all the American ones. This is just like whatever V-Man had that was just released for the Super Famicom. My Super Nintendo pile has like hacks and shit in it. SG-1000, old Sega system, 68 games. Super Nintendo, 1,275 games. And what was I going to note about this one? Lots of Metroid hacks, lots of Mega Man hacks, lots of Super Mario hacks. Vectrex, really old system, 26 games. Odyssey, joystick 1 button, 93 games. Virtual Boy, I actually have public domain games in here that plus up the library, you know, and public domain, anyway. Did I hit mute or something again? Anyway, ZX Spectrum, 1557, and I don't know if this does a up, down, left, right, but I'm really sus because that just shows a keyboard there, it doesn't show a joystick at all. Probably going to get rid of this, and it's pretty much the same thing as the Amstrad CPC, except the Amstrad CPC is a little bit better, so I could just keep the Amstrad CPC, have all the decent ones, don't need the keyboard stuff, but I might keep it. And with that, I am out of my library. I hope I gave you any kind of weird tips that might make your system work. Anyway, let's see what else. Got all the buttons. Talked about everything. I could go into deep, more specifics. Oh, did want to show you guys my this little strew of parts and whatnot I've got out here. For my controllers. This is a 1-hour battery recharger and 4 batteries, 2 controllers. Each one uses 2 rechargeable batteries. You need at least 2 controllers, first and second player. But if I wanted to hook all 4 controllers into this table, I could, and some of these systems will play 4 players, and the controls are already preset. If I want to play a Nintendo 64 game, I abandoned these controllers and I use these corded ones, although from what I understand now there's I could get these wireless. I bought these before those came out. So I got black and green, they match the table. I got a mouse here, which is kind of superfluous because the trackball instantly acts as a mouse. This one's green. It's a LED green one, matches the table. This one's a multicolor LED keyboard. The wires that you're looking at down there, those are 22 gauge wires. You get those off of eBay for $9. I've gone through 4 packs of those, and those are 6 wires, 10 feet each. So that's 60 feet times 4, 240 feet of wire I've gone through making this table. Aside from that, those are 16 gauge wires. I needed those to do things like ground out the trackball and ground out some of run the wiring for the 12 gauge lights. So 12 gauge lights, those wires. Any other thing I need was probably the 22 gauge. That was my case for the Raspberry 4. This is the ring I made, which was really difficult. I had to use hole saws, doorknob drill borers. What are they called? Doorknob cores. Anyway, in order to make this, but it turned out it did such a good job on fitting my table together that I didn't need it whatsoever. These I did at 7/8 of a 7/8 inch bore. You can actually get as small as 3/4. I would recommend going with that smallest one, the 3/4 inch, anytime you want to do a joystick. Now these are actually the mini flight controls. The mini flight controls, the thickness that I put in here, the 3/8 of an inch, that is all the thickness you get, and then you run out. I can actually move the table with these too. Anyway. If you wanted to have a thicker table but not thinned out to 3/8 of an inch, you're going to have to get the longer flight controllers. What is it called? The stem comes up to about here. These guys are Senitsu buttons, Sanwa joysticks. Japanese tournament style, best of the best. These guys are based on, the actual joystick stem is based on the, I believe it's like called the Sega Dreamcast ASCII 2 controller, or Dreamcast 2, and it's all about the pivot, where the pivot's at. So we found exactly the best one with the best pivot, and then you have a problem because now you have to run a LED cord through it with an LED light in it. And so we had to find a joystick that exactly matched that one, but with the hole drill through it. And then your wires that come out the bottom, they'll get all twisted up, so you actually have to have a free-floating connector that allows the wires to twist without causing any kind of a problem. So those will never bunch up. Anyway, that's all I can think of to talk about at the moment. If I were to sell this guy, probably be $5,000, because I spent $2,300, maybe plus meals or something like that, about $2,500, and then I'd probably have to double the price just because it's such a rare, unique, and well-made, perfect item. But before any of that might happen, I'd also have to ship it. Would probably ship it personally, so probably have to drive it out to you. So you're probably talking about $5,500. In fact, I might even ask you for $6,000, everything said and done, because now I'm gonna have to. I've rebuilt this 4 times, trying to get at the perfect data point for the half a terabyte build, but now it's gonna be a terabyte, and I'm about to wipe it again, rebuild it for a 5th time, and make it into a 64-bit computer build. Same RasPie4. The thing I want to use is the full 8 GB RAM that's in this RasPie4, which I'll need the 64-bit structure to do that. So I'm going to tear this from the ground, like from its brain. I'm going to wipe that card. I'm going to make a 64-bit system. I'm going to put all of these games, all of these emulators back in, and then some of them I have to custom make. So hopefully I'll do that, and I don't know, it'll be a very, very nice table. Anyway, probably not going to sell it, probably going to keep it forever, but it exists, and if you have any questions, leave some comments. Thank you. Good luck with your build.